Hey, beautiful, please consider subscribing to our channel if you've been enjoying these stories. Your support helps a lot. Aid us in reaching our goal of 1,000 subscribers.
The blast rang out like thunder trapped in steel. The air shimmered where the plasma hit flesh. 3 white-hot bursts to the chest. The human dropped, or so they thought. He lay still on the training floor as the smell of burnt synth and blood settled. Over the silence, all eyes in the observation deck turned toward Instructor Kraval, who was already shouting into a comm bead, "Medical drones now simulation. Halt, shut it down now." Below the glass, the cadets stood frozen, one still holding his weapon. Raised Cadet Milcon Reptilian, cold-eyed, still sneering, just minutes before they had laughed as the human walked into the pit alone. No armor, no weapon. Just the bare standard issue. Cadet uniforms stretched across a 6'3" frame of scars. And silence. The cadets from Quadrant 12 thought it would be funny to leave the Deathworlder behind, to see if the animal could find his way through the sim without wetting himself. Now it wasn't funny anymore. The training facility was deep, in Coalition space, the apex of elite war academies. Only the best, only the brightest, only the most genetically honed were ever accepted. Aliens from 100 worlds, each trained to be soldiers, each thinking themselves above the rest, until Earth sent one of theirs, Jackson Cole, Earthborn Deathworlder, survivor of the Reclaimer wastes, a place where the ground boils and the rain peels skin. He arrived with no entourage, no translator, no introduction beyond the stamped packet with his name. The other cadets had chuckled when they first saw him. Pink-skinned, too large, too quiet, too slow, too primitive. He said nothing when they swapped out his rations for nutrient slurry, nothing when they rerouted his sleeping pod to the cryo bay, nothing. When Threxon's shoulder checked him into the sim wall during navigation drills, he just stared with that unblinking look, like he was waiting for something to begin. It began today. They had loaded into the infiltration sim. A mock pirate base meant, to test coordination and response, Jackson was last in the order queue. Somehow the door sealed before he entered. The others said it was a glitch, but no one fixed it. He found another way in anyway. No weapon, no armor, just fists and instinct. They didn't expect him to follow. They didn't expect him to survive when Milcon saw him coming through the auxiliary vent. He laughed and raised his rifle. "Stay down, Mudskin," he said. Then he pulled the trigger. 1, 2, 3. Each shot echoed like judgment in the sterile pit. Each one hit center mass. The human fell. Now he was still. Milcon lowered his rifle. Threxon snorted and turned. No more monkey games. Then the human moved, first a twitch, then a grunt, then a slow rise like steel pulled. From fire, Jackson stood up. Smoke rose from the charred holes in his shirt, his chest bleeding but not broken. His eyes locked on Milcon, unblinking, alive. He took one step, then another. No words, no roar. Just motion. Milcon stuttered. "Stay back." He aimed. Again, Jackson slapped the weapon aside like a toy, grabbed the reptilian by the neck, lifted him clear off the floor. Milcon kicked and gurgled. Jackson looked into his eyes and whispered, 3 shots. Then he slammed the cadet into the wall so hard. The panels cracked. Threxon shouted and drew his sidearm. Fired once, twice, Jackson moved fast, too fast. He dropped. Milcon caught Threxon's arm. Mid-shot, twisted bones broke. The weapon clattered. Jackson swept the predator's legs and drove him to the floor with one fist. Sirens blared above. The simulation halted. Steel shutters slammed down over the pit. Drones swarmed the perimeter. Instructor Kraval screamed into the console, "Containment breach! Now isolate the human now!" The AI replied in cold tones. "Subject bio readings incompatible with standard containment parameters. Recommend observation and data capture." Kraval cursed. Cadets backed away from the windows. Below them, Jackson stood alone. Chest scorched blood, soaking his uniform. He looked up at the glass right at Kraval, right through him. Then he turned, walked toward the sim exit. The blast door sealed with 3 layers of Coalition alloy, built to stop tanks. He reached out and touched the metal with one hand. Fingers splayed. Shoulders squared. One instructor whispered, "He can't be serious." The steel groaned slowly, audibly, like it remembered fear from the floor. Threxon coughed blood, his unbroken arm shaking as he pulled himself to the wall. That's not a cadet, he muttered. That's a death sentence. Above the pit, Kurval looked pale. What the hell did we let in here? Jackson didn't answer. He pressed his hand harder against the door. Then he pulled, metal strained, bolts shrieked. The wall trembled, and still he pulled in the silence before the first bolt gave way. The cadets in the control room realized something all at once. He had not attacked first. He had not provoked. He had not retaliated until they tried to kill him. And now they had to live with what? They'd awakened. The sound of the bolt snapping echoed like thunder again, and Jackson kept pulling. The first bolt snapped. The sound was raw and metallic, like the scream of something ancient breaking free. The blast door buckled inward, instructor. Kurval stumbled back from the console, his mandibles clicking in alarm. This is not possible. Another instructor whispered, nothing tears through titanium alloy barehanded. Inside the training pit, Jackson stood with both hands on the frame muscles, drawn taut blood trailing down his arms, eyes focused like a warhead set to detonate. The second bolt cracked. A tremor ran through the floor. Above him, cadets stared in silence, some frozen, some trembling, none speaking. Then the sirens stopped. Only. The groan of warping metal remained. Kurval slapped the override panel. Seal every door, reroute drones to neutralize subject, bring him down before he breaches the command tier. The AI hesitated. Warning biological markers indicate subject is not in violation of primary combat protocols. Subject did not initiate aggression. Recommend non-lethal response. Kurval roared. He tore through 2 cadets and is breaking a military facility in half. Define non-lethal. The AI paused. Subject did not initiate. Below. The final bolt gave way with a thunderclap. The blast door fell forward and slammed onto the floor with a sound that shook the building. Dust rained from the ceiling. Jackson stepped over the wreckage, chest rising and falling, face calm, hands open. Kurval stared. Get reinforcements now. The door behind Jackson slid open. 6 elite security units stormed in synthetics, faster than any organic soldier, clad in carbon armor, armed with neural disruptors and concussion blades. They encircled Jackson without a word. He raised his hands slightly, then flexed his fingers. One synthetic lunged. Jackson ducked low and drove an elbow up into its throat. Metal crumpled. Sparks flew. He spun and swept the legs from another, grabbed the falling machine, and threw. Tied into the others, the hallway erupted into chaos. 3 more units rushed him from behind. Jackson caught the arm of one and twisted, tore it free, used it to bludgeon the next, then crushed the chest of the third underfoot. He moved like instinct, like everything had slowed for him. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Kurval watched the feed with disbelief. Is he killing them? Another instructor shook his head. No, disabling. Every hit targets a joint or sensor node. He could have destroyed them all. The observation deck cadet Threxon sat propped against the wall, his broken arm cradled in his lap. He stared at the feed. You don't get it. He held back until now. Cadet Yerlan, a silent observer from the aquatic worlds, finally spoke. You mean, this is him being restrained? Threxon nodded. He could have killed me in one move, he didn't. On screen, Jackson paused. 5 synthetics offline, 1 crawling backward. He looked down at it, then turned away. The feed cut out as he moved into the stairwell. Meanwhile, a quiet hush fell over the upper deck. A single word began circulating between instructors and command staff. Deathworlder, it was a term tossed around in jokes and horror stories, a class of species born on planets so violent most never developed sentience. But humans had. And now one of them stood inside the most secure training facility in Coalition territory, unarmed, wounded, and unstoppable. Medical scans confirmed his vitals were elevated, adrenaline 10 times baseline. Pain response suppressed. Healing response accelerated. Kurval reviewed the biofeed with trembling fingers. How is this even possible? He was shot 3 times. His heart rate never dropped. The medtech beside him responded quietly. Sir, his body is adapting as we speak. His cells are rewriting protocols under stress. He's not just surviving. He's learning. Kurval swore. This is not a cadet. This is a weapon. The command channel opened. A high-ranking officer appeared on screen. General Sartha Battle scarred, one of the few, who had seen war on the Rimworlds. He spoke with calm authority. "Stand down, let him through." Craval blinked. "You want to let him through?" Sartha nodded. "Yes, because if we don't, he'll come through anyway. And I would prefer the walls remain standing." Craval protested. "He attacked fellow cadets," Sarth replied, "after they shot him." A pause. Then the general added, "We asked Earth for their best. They sent him. You wanted a lesson in power. Now pay attention." Below, the cadet moved with purpose. He passed security. Checkpoints without resistance. Doors unlocked for him before he reached them. Even the AI now recognized him as a higher threat than the protocol could define. It stepped aside and watched. Jackson finally stopped in front of the central control room. The doors hissed open. Inside sat a table, 6 instructors, Craval in the center. No one spoke. Jackson stepped forward. He looked each one in the eye, not as a soldier, but as something else, something older, wiser. Wounded. His voice was quiet. "I came here to learn, not to fight." Craval met his gaze. "You broke our walls," Jackson replied. "You broke trust." The silence that followed was thick as stone. Craval stood slowly. "Then finish your lesson." Jackson nodded once, turned and walked away. The room stayed silent long after the doors closed. In the corridors, cadets parted to let him pass. No one laughed now, no one spoke. Back in the observation deck, Threxon watched the monitors replay the footage over and over. He rewound to the moment. Jackson rose after being shot. Paused, it stared at the screen. He whispered, "I think he was waiting to see what kind of people we really were." Behind him, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed again. Another sim was beginning. A new challenge. Jackson had already entered the next test room. No orders, no commands. He just kept going, Buff. The instructors remained seated. None dared call him a cadet again. They all knew now he was something else entirely, and he had only just begun. The lights flickered. In the depth chamber, it was the oldest room in the facility, buried 7 floors beneath the main structure. Built during the Second Expansion War, reinforced for containment, not comfort, Jackson stood in the center. His shirt burned away, his wounds still open, his expression unreadable. Across from him stood Commander Roan, head of Deep Protocol, a man known only by rumor until today, tall, lean, silver-haired with synthetic eyes that never blinked. He studied Jackson for a full minute before speaking. "You are not what we expected." Jackson said nothing. Roan paced slowly around him. "The Coalition likes its champions polite, disciplined, predictable. You are none of these things." Still, Jackson did not respond. Roan stopped behind him. "Why did you come here?" Jackson turned. "To learn how you fight." Roan narrowed his eyes. "You could have learned that from a screen." Jackson stepped forward once. "Not how you think." Silence settled again, thick as lead. Outside the observation panel, instructors watched Craval among them, arms folded, his mandibles clicking with unease. Jackson spoke again. "I was told this place made warriors out of the best, but all I've seen is posturing and cruelty." Roan tilted his head. "And what would you call what you did in the sim room?" Jackson answered, restraint. There was no arrogance in his voice, no pride, just fact, and the fact unsettled everyone listening. Roan nodded slowly. "Then tell me, Jackson Cole, what would it take for you to stop holding back?" Jackson looked him in the eye. "An order." Roan turned away and touched the console beside him. "Then let's see what your limits really are." The floor rumbled. Walls unfolded. The room expanded. Steel plates slid away, revealing an arena lined with black pillars from the far side. Doors opened and 2 units emerged. Massive quadruped assault droids, Mark 8s, built to contain entire prison riots. One alone was enough to hold a battalion in place. Jackson exhaled once. Roan's voice came through the comm. "Engage and survive. Use force equal to threat level." The droids scanned him and charged. Jackson moved faster than the cameras could track. He ducked under the first strike and drove his shoulder into the leg joint of the lead droid. It staggered. He followed up with a sweep kick. That sent it spinning. The second droid fired a stun round. Jackson caught it, threw it back. The impact dented the emitter panel. He didn't roar, didn't rage. He simply dismantled them, one part at a time, with surgical violence. Above, Craval whispered. He's adapting again, even faster than before. Roan spoke over the end simulation. The droids dropped. Jackson stood alone, chest heaving, smoke rising from his fists. Roan entered the arena, walked right up to him. Why are you really here, Jackson? The human looked tired, not exhausted, just tired of being asked. My world doesn't need heroes. It needs proof that the galaxy respects our blood, that it fears what happens if it doesn't. Roan blinked slowly. You came here to send a message, Jackson. Nodded, not with words. Roan placed a hand on his shoulder. You may be the most dangerous person ever admitted here, but that's not what scares them. Jackson waited. Roan continued. What scares them is that you're still trying to be good later. That night in the upper levels, the cadets gathered around quiet screens watching footage that was never supposed to exist. They watched the fight, frame by frame, watched the way Jackson moved, like he'd been trained by war itself. Threxen leaned forward, his arm in a cast. He should have been dead after the first shot. I watched him bleed out and stand like it didn't matter, Yerlin replied. He bled, but he didn't fall. Not really. Another cadet spoke from the back. He's not the strongest, but he's the most terrifying because he's still holding back. In the command tower, Sarthi reviewed the data. He saw the simulations, the heart rate logs, the cellular regeneration. He saw what everyone else refused to say. This was not evolution. This was a declaration. He opened a secure channel, an old one, to a number that no longer officially existed. A voice answered, rough, deep, human. Speak. Sartha didn't waste time. The boy's alive. More than alive. He's everything you warned us about. The voice chuckled once. Then I hope you listened, Sarth replied. We trained him, we tested him, he passed every limit we set. A pause. The voice answered, he was never here to pass. He was here to see if the galaxy could survive him. Sarth leaned forward. Should we be afraid? The voice paused again, then said, only if you make him choose. The line went dead far below. Jackson sat in the dark, his hands resting on his knees, his eyes staring at nothing. But in his mind, he saw the wastes, the firestorms, the people who sent him here. He remembered the last thing his father said before the dropship lifted. Don't show them everything. Make them ask what they never want to know. He hadn't yet, but he was close, and something inside him was waking. Something, old something furious. He closed his eyes and waited for morning. The sky cracked open with thunder. The outer perimeter drills had been scheduled as routine, a standard simulation, 2 squads of cadets, 4 drones, 1 decommissioned evac tower. But something changed. The drones glitched, fired real rounds, shields. Failed. The tower went live. No one moved fast enough. Except him. Jackson was already running before the first scream hit the comm. He cleared the outer gate in under 7 seconds. No armor, no orders, just motion. Threxen clung to the side of the shattered crawler vehicle, blood trailing down his leg. Something's wrong, they're not shutting down. Yerlin dove behind wreckage as the turret reactivated. Command isn't responding. This isn't a drill. Across the clearing, the evac tower's core began. 2 glow charging, overloading. Jackson didn't slow. He crossed the field with machine fire raining behind him, each step a beat of a war drum in his chest. The tower would explode in under 30 seconds. The blast radius would flatten the entire sector. Craval's voice screamed through the intercom. Abort mission, evacuate all cadets, pull him out now. Roan stood silent, watching the feed. He didn't speak. Didn't blink. Jackson reached the base of the tower. Smoke and sparks surrounded him. He climbed the outer. Lattice metal bent under his grip. Alarms howled. The core hit critical. 15 seconds. He reached the ignition housing, tore it open. Inside, the pulse regulator glowed white-hot. Too unstable to remove. Too late to disconnect. 10 seconds. He took a breath, pressed his palm against the core, flesh-seared, bone-strained. Then he pushed. The entire tower groaned, steel shrieked. The charge stalled. Not diffused. Not disabled. Redirected. Jackson twisted the core assembly. A sound like thunder split the sky. The tower snapped at the midsection. The pulse redirected skyward. The blast column erupted into the clouds. Blinding light. Then silence. The tower collapsed behind him. Jackson landed hard. Smoke rising from his arms. every muscle trembling, then stillness. Threxen was the first to reach him. You stopped it. How the hell did you stop it? Jackson sat up slowly. I didn't. I gave it somewhere else to go. Yerlin approached. Your hands, they're burned through. Jackson looked down. I'll heal, above in the command. Tower Roan finally spoke. End simulation record, full telemetry, archive everything. Craval turned to him. That wasn't a simulation. The tower was offline for years. No system could reboot it that fast. Rowan nodded slowly. Which means someone turned. Idon Craval stared. You think this was sabotage? Rowan didn't answer. Down below, the cadets surrounded Jackson, not with cheers, not with fear, with silence, with recognition. He was no longer a question. He was the answer, back in the briefing hall hours. Later, Jackson stood alone at the center of the chamber. Every instructor, every cadet, every analyst sat around him. General Sarthi appeared on the hollow platform, expression unreadable. You disobeyed orders. You entered a combat zone without clearance. You destroyed a classified coalition structure. Jackson said nothing. You also saved 27 lives. You contained a full core meltdown. You executed maneuvers. No recorded species has survived. Still, Jackson did not speak. Sarth paused. Cadet Cole. Do you have anything to say? Jackson raised his head. I didn't come here to follow. I came here to understand, and now I do. Sarth leaned forward. And what do you understand? Jackson met his eyes. That power is not what scares you. It's choice. You built this academy to tame threats. But I'm not here to be tamed. I'm here so you understand what happens when a Deathworlder chooses to protect something. Silence followed. Then Sartha smiled. Then I recommend the rest of the galaxy prepare. 3. Weeks passed. The story spread faster than protocols could contain it. Across battlecruisers and frontier outposts, across mining rings and intelligence halls, one name repeated, whispered, feared, Jackson. Cole. Some called him the human warden, others the Deathborn. Most simply called him the one who walked through fire and stayed standing. But those who knew him, the cadets who watched him bleed and rise, they called him something else. Brother Threxen trained harder than ever, his arm fully healed. Yerlin broke every aquatic combat record in his sector. Others followed, changed, evolved, not from fear, from belief. They saw what Jackson had done, and they believed they could too. Roan met with Sarth one last time before the graduation trials. You know he'll never take orders the way they want, Sartha replied. He doesn't have to. He already leads. Rowan nodded. Then what happens when the next Deathworlder arrives? Sartha looked out the window at the horizon, where the training towers touched the clouds. Then, we pray they meet someone like him first. In the final trial, Jackson stood before the storm wall, an ancient relic, a barrier of ionized wind. No one crossed it without assistance. He walked in alone. The cadets lined the ridge, waiting, watching. Craval stood beside Roan. He'll be torn apart. Rowan didn't respond. The wind roared, lightning cracked, and then, from the heart of the storm, a figure emerged, walking, not crawling, not dragging, walking. Jackson Cole stepped out, hair scorched, eyes like coals, and smiled. Behind him the storm parted just for a moment, as if the world itself acknowledged him. The cadets roared, not because he survived, but because he never once stepped back. In that moment, every lie about what humanity was supposed to be, every rumor, every warning became truth. He was not just a Deathworlder. He was what came after fear, what came when the fire chose to walk beside the world instead of burn it down. And now the galaxy knew. The storm had a name, Jackson Cole.